Hi, I'm Dempsey Pulot, and this week I'm reviewing... Now, before we start today's video, as always, I just want to remind you guys to make sure you hit that like button if you like today's video, and hit that subscribe button as well if you're not already subscribed. I post new videos like this weekly, mostly movie reviews. Sometimes I do trailer reactions, and as of right now, I'm still trying to pump out my best of lists from last year, even though it's this year, so bear with me. But without further ado, let's talk about The Grudge. The Grudge was directed by Nicholas Pesci and stars Andrea Riseborough, Demian Bashir, John Cho, Betty Gilpin, Lynn Shay, Jackie Weaver, William Sadler, and Frankie Faison. And this film is actually a continuation of the American franchise that started in 2004 and is, in and of itself, a reboot of the Japanese horror film Ju-on. The story in particular centers around a detective who accidentally becomes targeted by the Grudge after stepping into a house that is cursed by it. And the film is actually a continuation of the American franchise that began in 2004, which in and of itself is a reboot of the Japanese horror film Ju-on. And the story in particular revolves around a detective who accidentally becomes targeted by the Grudge after stepping into a house that's cursed by it. And guys, trust me when I say, 2020 is off to a terrible start. This movie sucked. Now, I don't even know where to begin with this film. Nothing makes sense. Between the story, the plot lines that make it up, and some of the character choices, everything is a mess. First and foremost, there are 4 different storylines, and they're all told simultaneously. There's nothing wrong with that format necessarily. I mean, we've seen it done before, but when it's done like this, it is just a giant no-no, and I'll go into a little bit of detail in a minute. The film takes place in 2006, which is fine for the sake of continuity, right? Because the original films, as I said, took place in 2004. The sequel, I believe, took place right after. So, you know, it's right in the ballpark of the original film. Plus, it goes back into 2004 and 2005. And what starts off kind of like an orderly telling of what is going on, right? They establish where they're at, and then they go back. Eventually becomes a giant free-for-all. I'm not kidding when I say that there's literally a scene where John Cho's character is in the middle of dealing with a child that's bleeding profusely, and you're kind of caught up in the moment trying to figure out what's going on, and then it cuts from that to a totally different time period. And we know it's a totally different time period because, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but we just know. And then you're kind of left there wondering, what the hell just happened? And then it doesn't go back to that scene for like another 20 minutes. And it's such an awkward cut, too. Like, that's the kind of film that you're dealing with here. In addition to that, all the plot lines, which are mapped through multiple houses and people, don't feel fully fleshed out. In fact, some of them feel very incomplete and incoherent. There's actually one character in particular that we see die at the very end of the film that I'm pretty sure should have already been dead. At least it made sense to me, or it was implied that they were already dead, so I was kind of left confused. This whole movie, I just can't emphasize enough, it's just a giant mess. And then we have all these different characters, right? We have a young couple that's expecting a baby, an older couple where a husband is trying to grapple with his wife in a fugue state, and then they hire like a doctor he wants to euthanize his wife because he feels bad. And I mean, these aren't really spoilers, and I don't even know why they have all these intricate storylines, because they really lead nowhere. And then we have like some of the other characters that we have 2 cops that are obsessed with the house. One is in the past, and one is the main character who becomes obsessed after starting to see all these visions of all these demons or whatever. So it's kind of like just the same story, just repeated twice, because they both lead nowhere. A lot of this film just leads nowhere. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And yeah, I just don't get it. Honestly, it felt like the writers were just trying to connect all the characters beyond the Grudge, which is really their only true connection, and it tried to make some sort of giant thematic statement, which it really never does. And in addition to that, the characters are absolutely dumb. Either that, or the actors are portraying them a lot more naively than they were written. Regardless, there are a lot of scenes in this movie where we, the audience, are shown something to be off, or that it might be tampered with by the Grudge, but instead of the character acknowledging it or saying something about it, I mean, we understand through their facial expression or just their reaction of it that they know something's off, but they never mention it. They never talk about it out loud. Instead, they just go about with the rest of their day. Prime example, Jackie Weaver, who plays the nurse in the plot line regarding the old couple, she goes out to get them dinner one night. She goes to the supermarket in the meat section, and in the meat section, everything is covered with flies. And we see in her face that she's horrified and confused, but instead of talking about it, saying something to the butcher like, hey, what's going on? The film cuts from her expression to her leaving the store with a brown paper bag full of groceries. I mean, maybe you could blame it on poor editing too, but at the same time, why wouldn't she say something? And why wouldn't they let her say something? Like I said, we clearly see something is wrong. And there are scenes like that throughout the entire film. All that aside though, if I had to choose my biggest problem with this film, I'd say that it's definitely its shifting tone. This film is blatantly a horror film. Like, it has way too much blood and violence not to be. But several times throughout, it tries to have these tender moments between characters that kind of attempt to pull at your heartstrings and make you think that it's a drama. I mean, there's even a scene between these two characters towards the very end of the film where they talk about the beauty of moving on, you know, and, you know, the possibility of afterlife. Yeah, I wasn't buying it. Look, I'm not going to say that I have a total grudge against this film just because there was one thing that I really did like about it, the way that it was shot. I think that there are some occasionally cool sequences as well as some that might squeeze a scare out of you here or there. But overall, I was expecting a lot more. Yes, I am aware that this film is a horror film and it was released in January, and generally those two things don't go so well together. But at the same time, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that with a cast of this caliber, this film should have been a lot better. But hey, maybe this film is just proof that some things really are better off dead. And for that, I'm going to give this film 1 star.
Something never felt right about it.
Guys, thanks again for taking the time out of your day to view this video. It really does mean the world to me. And once again, if you like this video, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I post new videos like this weekly, and I'm always working on new stuff. As a matter of fact, next week is going to be pretty big because I'll finally be dropping my best of decade and best of year, talking about 2019 lists. So if you're excited for that, make sure you stay tuned. But in the meantime, if you've seen this movie, if you loved it, for some reason, I'm sorry. If you hated it like me, let's talk about it down below in the comment section. I look forward to hearing what any and all of you guys have to say. I love engaging with you guys. But yeah, that's pretty much all the time that I have today. I have a lot of stuff to do, so I should probably get back to work. Until next time, I'm Dempsey Pallad. Take care.